It's J-Man here, your spiritual meteorologist in the middle of a storm, also on a sunny day. And I'm coming to you live from our Journey Lighthouse that is still shining its light in the middle of the storm. We want to remind you that we have a lighthouse fundraiser going on, and we would love you to give. We're trying to raise $25,000 by the end of August. So that means we need you to give, and give above what you normally give too. We know that everyone's in the middle of a storm right now, including me. And we know it's tough. We want you to be brave and hang in there and stay strong and weather out the storm, because it's gonna end one day. We love you. Be strong, be safe. As I said, just Jacob Nairn, your spiritual meteorologist. I don't know how to say that word. Wondering how I got Rick to talk me into this. Thank you.
Ken, and I'm a journeyer. This is a poem by 19th century American poet Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words, stops at all, and sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chilliest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me.
Hi, journeyers. It's Rick. It is Sunday, August the 2nd. We are going to have worship. This is our gathering, and I welcome you to this safe space. I'm driving right now. My truck's almost empty. Got to get gas in it. We're going to do a meditation in a little while, and you need a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. Oh, if we were only in the same room. The pieces of paper, probably something cool and cardstocky or construction papery, cut into different sizes by Vicky, different colors, would all be on your chairs right now. But instead, you have to go find your own. So go find your own. I'll wait. I'll wait for you to go get your paper and pen. Kind of makes you appreciate the work Vicky does to get everything ready before worship starts, doesn't it? What do you mean, what kind of paper? Just some paper. You can do it. Pen or pencil, doesn't matter. Crayon, whatever. Welcome. Welcome to this gathering of Journey Imperfect Faith community. I am wearing a Baby Yoda face mask. Thank you, Christina, my sweet wife, for getting this for me. It's a beautiful day. It's hot. I'm in the park in our neighborhood. I want to go be by some water. It's a pretty place that I'm walking down to. We are in a difficult time, as you know. It's hard to have hope in the midst of things going to crap and falling apart. So I want to welcome you to a place that has hope in it. In fact, a Journey Imperfect Faith community is built in hope. That's what it's for. If we don't share hope together, there's no Journey Imperfect Faith community. There's no point. The whole thing is a gamble. I always tell other pastors when they ask me to talk about it, I'm never sure what's going to happen. I'm never sure if anybody's going to be there. I've never been sure if I was going to be gainfully employed for that long. It's been 16 years. There's hope. I want to show you this pretty place. It's nice, isn't it? Welcome. Welcome to some quiet in the midst of the news, the politics, the tension. We're not the first people to feel this. We won't be the last. But this is our moment, our time to gather as a faith community. Even if you're watching this not Sunday, August the 2nd, God knows when, you're here with us. Welcome. We're going to breathe now, and we're going to talk about hope. We're going to hear some poetry and see some video and some music and have a meditation later with that piece of paper. So let's just breathe. Just listen. Welcome. We're having a fundraiser. Please donate. It's a strange time right now. Journey continues. Please be part of this fundraiser. Keep Journey healthy and serving in the world. We feel very proud about what we do with our money. We are frugal and we give 10% away or more. If you want to know more about Journey, go to our website, journeyifc.com. Glad that you're here.
Good morning, Journeyers. It's Jacob here, your summer intern, and Rick wants me to talk about fear responses. Right now, many of us find ourselves in this crazy storm we call a pandemic, also going through many other storms. Maybe we are going through the storm of the loss of a loved one, or the loss of a relationship, or a job, or maybe any other storm you can think of right now. Our bodies have this crazy way of reacting to storms, or to stress, to fear. Sometimes if fear is too great, our body will shut down and just react without us even thinking about it. If we look at our brain here, let's say this is our brain, and this right here is our frontal lobe. So right up here, this is where we make all of our logical decisions. This is where we're in control of what we're doing. This is where we want to be. But sometimes when fear strikes us, or whenever we get really stressed, we flip our lid, okay? And instead of coming to this frontal lobe right here, we go down into our amygdala, which is a small little part right here that goes all the way back into our brainstem and sends out a fear response. So when we go into these fear response places, this can manifest itself in a few different ways. So you might have heard of fight or flight. These are two where If you're confronted with someone and all of a sudden you just start fighting back and you don't know what you're doing, that would be fight. You also could have flight, which is where you just run. You flee the situation and get out of there. But there's actually three more. There's freeze. Some people's bodies just shut down. They stop working. They can't do anything. They just become numb. Then you have fawn. This is a new one. And this is where you try to win over the situation. You try to be charming. You try to make it seem like you're okay. You kind of impress the other person that's attacking you, or the situation that's attacking you, to prove to it that you're okay and that it can't bother you. And really similar to this one, there's fake it, which is when you completely dissociate from who you are right now and you just go into overdrive and you just start handling it. If you find yourself in any of these, so fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or fake, you could be responding to stress. When we look at our brain, if we're doing these things, we're down here, and this is our scared brain. This is our younger brain. This is where we don't know how to react. But there's actually some ways that we can respond to this to help us get back into this frontal lobe. What we can do is we can start listing things. We can start using our logical brain to rewire things. There's a little trick you can do where it's called bilateral stimulation, where on your lap you just go left, right, or maybe you can cross your arms and do it on your shoulders. And you just go like this. And then just start listing things just that you can sense. So maybe some things you feel around you. How does your shirt feel? How does the wind feel? How does the seat feel on your bottom? And then you can look around your room and see things. What do you see around you? You can also list things you can smell. Maybe it's the grass or your new Scentsy. Then think of what you can hear around you. Maybe it's the birds. Maybe it's your family screaming in the other room. And then think of something that you can taste. Maybe it's your food from earlier. Maybe it's just your mouth. Maybe you can think of what it tastes like to eat a brownie. As you do this, take note of what your body's doing. If you feel yourself going back into that scared place, that amygdala, when you're flipping your lid, start patting your hands a little faster. And take a deep breath in and out. And as you calm down, slow the rhythm of your hands. See, what this does is this helps your brain take this fear response when our lids flip like this, and it helps us slowly get back into this frontal lobe and start putting the stress away in new areas. It helps us go back left and right, and stay from the scared place, this younger place in our brain. We know you're in a storm right now. We all are. If you find yourself in one of these fight, flee, fawn, fake, freeze, whatever they are, take note of it. Sit yourself down, do some bilateral stimulation, and just list your senses. And take a few deep breaths in and out.
Hello, journeyers. This is Rick, and I am here with Woody Jones. And Woody was one of the founding journeyers. Judge, can you believe that was 16 years ago this summer? Goodness gracious. And Woody is somebody that I have relied on many times for wisdom and insight and support, and he is a good friend. And I wanted to ask him today a couple of questions that we can be thinking about, all of us thinking about, and I wanted to hear what he had to say about them. So Woody, welcome, and thank you for doing this. I appreciate it a lot.
You bet. 16 years, time flies.
Yeah, no kidding. I wanted to ask, first of all, what does Journey's mission and its vision for what it does in the world mean to you?
Well, there are a lot of things I love about Journey. Part of its mission part of its vision, I guess, is it's radically inclusive. I have always loved that phrase that Journey says about itself. Journey cares about social justice, and it walks the walk. It doesn't just talk the talk, and I really appreciate that. Journey devotes a certain percentage of its income to charitable organizations and endeavors, and no matter what, and that, to me, that's definitely walking the walk.
How about, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to sort of ramble. I know I've told you this before, but since I was a kid, and not that I'm any kind of a biblical scholar at all, but one of the few, if not the only, biblical passages that ever really resonated strongly with me was the one from Matthew 22 about there being two commandments: love God and love your neighbor. And shortly after Journey was formed, we adopted that as our mantra. And when we did that, I knew I was in the right place.
Good. Yeah, good. I mean, surely it doesn't have to be much more complicated than that, although we make it more complicated, we human beings. So what does it mean to you personally? How has it affected you personally? What's your personal takeaway from Journey today?
It's a good place to connect with God, and to be reminded about who God is and who we are and what our relationship with God is. And Journey does that in such a, to me, an open atmosphere. They're wonderful people at Journey, but the services are they're not stilted. They're relaxed, and I love the way that Journey counsels to take the Bible seriously, but not literally. That's always been very important to me. So those are a few of the things.
Got it. Thank you for your support over 16 years and for being such an important part of Journey as the journeyer and a leader, shepherd, helper, visioner, chairperson, all around I'm there if you need me person. And you're a good example to me and many others. So thank you. I appreciate it, Woody.
Of course.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Dan, and I'm a journeyer. This is a reading from a letter sent from the first century Christian church planter, Paul, to a church in the Greek city of Corinth. The way Jesus showed us life, death, resurrection, trusting in God, sounds like foolishness to people who are themselves in the dark. But for those of us who follow this way, it has God's power in it. The prophet Isaiah wrote that God says, "I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and throw away what the intelligent think is important." God has made the wisdom of this world look silly. Our path, trusting God and following Jesus, may look like weakness to those around us, but God's work is wiser than the smartest conventional wisdom and logic and strength humans can invent. God has united you with God's self. Follow Jesus. Jesus' teachings, life, death, and resurrection, are God's true wisdom. God chooses things that are ignored or laughed at by this world, things that people think are worthless, and God uses those things and those people to do powerful things.
My mother used to say a long time ago, whenever there would be any really catastrophe that was in the movies or on the air, she would say, always look for the helpers. There will always be helpers. you know, even just on the sidelines. That's why I think that if news programs could make a conscious effort of showing rescue teams, of showing who, medical people, anybody who is coming into a place where there's a tragedy, to be sure that they include that. Because if you look for the helpers, you'll know that there's hope.
As a leader of the early Christian movement, he wasn't with Jesus directly, but he interacted with and was a colleague of Jesus' original followers. He was in that first generation after those people had their Jesus experience. His name was Paul. His other name, lots of people in that culture in which there was Jewish and Greek and Roman culture all mixed together. Lots of people had different ways that they referred to themselves or showed up, depending on whether they were in church or mystery churches that were not Christian, or in the merchant class, or in government. People spoke different languages, how the world worked. This guy was also named Saul. Saul, in his case, was a Jewish name. He changed it, or adapted his name to Paul, to appeal to people who were not just Jewish. He wanted to reach out past the context he had come from and the context that Jesus had come from. He was a church planter. He's somebody who told this story about what he believed about what Jesus was about and accomplished and what God was doing in Jesus. And he was a busy bee. He was a determined guy, full of passion, and I suspect he was, a lot of the time, pretty hard to get along with. He was on a mission. One of his churches that he planted and was helping to nurture, guide, follow up on, he would plant a church and then go someplace else and then send letters back to those churches. And that's a lot of what's called the New Testament, the Christian churches, Christian scriptures are about, is Paul's letters to churches and church leaders. Corinth is an interesting church. It's a church with a lot of diversity. Church with some people with a lot of money. Church with, as all early churches were in the Christian era, first few centuries of Jesus' people, I guess pre-Christian, I suppose, since Christianity as a thing wasn't really going until the empire took it over. In those early couple of centuries, there were always poor people who were very much touched by and moved by the message of this poor person, Jesus, a nobody and an outcast. And nobodies and outcasts were really excited and happy when they heard the news that there was somebody like them who had been destroyed like they felt by the empire because they were slaves and servants. Many, many, many people in the early Jesus movement were slaves, were servants, were bond servants. Also, many were sick people, people nobody wanted, women because they were so low on the totem pole. Corinth is interesting too because they argue a lot. Not that churches would ever do that, but the Corinthians, as they're called, the people from this Greek city of Corinth, are very passionate about their faith, and they're also trying to figure out how to be in community. And you know, being in loving community is hard. And Paul tries to get them to understand some things about how to follow Jesus. One of the things he tells them is, look, I know that this thing that you're part of, that I taught you, that other teachers are teaching you, is really stupid. It seems ridiculous. And you live in the big empire, and there are tough things happening all the time, and it won't be long before the empire begins to really crack down on these strange Jesus people. Ironically, the empire that then adopts Jesus as its mascot. Whatever. It's not weird. Paul says to them, look, what God did in Jesus and what God is like, the Jewish God that is not just confined to Judaism, God is love. And love is not logical. And God brought this person into the world, Jesus, who did not rise to the top of the heap, did not want to be king, did not want to rule everybody with power, did not want to have armies at his disposal. He understood God as being a force that is simply about love, life, death, and resurrection over and over and over again. Paul talks about the message of the cross, which is this interesting way to say that what God did when Jesus went up against the powers that be in the capital city of Jerusalem was not, God wasn't defeated. That love is never defeated. That love is always creative and creating. That love is always making new life happen. That death cannot keep love from continuing to be renewed and life to be made new. You can't stop love. You can't stop life from happening, even though death happens and loss happens and sadness happens and suffering happens. Richard Rohr, the Franciscan, and Paul says, so this looks like foolishness to the rest of the world, but to God it looks like the greatest possible wisdom. And so you've got to hold on to how God thinks, not how the world thinks. I know some of you are very worldly and successful in the world. And you have money and you have power and you have prestige, and yet somehow you've gotten a hold of this message, or rather it's gotten a hold of you. And the message is, the way the world measures things is wrong. And this was Jesus' message all along. I give you peace, not the way the world gives people assurance and peace and certainty. I don't give you that. I give you peace, which comes from knowing that God is love and that God will not be defeated. And Jesus says, I'm about to go and enact it, and you're going to see it work. I am perfectly willing to sacrifice my life in service of something greater than myself. I am going to call the powers that be out into the open, and people's hypocrisy and corruption and the systems that have co-opted and stolen the message of God and the religion and the temple and all of those beautiful things that people feel connected to God about. They've been stolen from us, and I'm going to take them back by proving that God is bigger than these systems. And we are in the midst of lots of systems, and many of those systems are very corrupt and sick and broken. I'm waving to a man and his kid to come on down and fish. They're not going to bother you, are they? They're certainly not going to bother me. Paul says this message is foolishness. Of course it looks stupid. Of course it makes no sense. Have you ever had to put something together and try and figure out how to make it work? And here is Paul saying, the way Jesus operates and the way God sees the world, things don't just have to all come together. Things will be messy, and there will be death. Hey, and there'll be loss, and there will always be resurrection. Always, always, always. Hello. Hi. Fisherman. Emily Dickinson says, hope is the thing with feathers. And no matter what, no matter how hard the wind is blowing, no matter how cold it is, no matter how far out to sea you are. That's Dan. Thanks, Dan. He's finished reading the scripture for today. No matter how strange everything is, no matter how far out you are, you'll hear the birds singing. That's what hope is like. Hope is the thing that continues to sing in the midst of seeming impossibility. Do you know what's really funny? I thought about bringing my fishing pole and doing part of my talk about the improbability of fishing. It relies on hope. You can't see fish. I mean, if you can see fish, it's great. You can't see them. You have to have hope. It doesn't matter how together you are and how fancy your equipment is and how sure you are that the fish are where you are casting the lure, the bait, the whatever, the live worm, the whatever. You can't guarantee that the fish will bite. You have to have hope. That's what God is like. Hope. We are in a terribly difficult time. This pandemic is soul-crushing. I know people who have been through COVID and survived it. It's so hard. And I know people have talked to me about folks that they know who haven't survived it. And it's heartbreaking. And the government, oh my goodness, y'all. And schools reopening and blessings for the kids and the parents and the teachers and the administrators. This is a hard, scary time. If you're exhausted, it's okay. It's not your imagination. This is scary and difficult and crushing. The economy is crushing and terrifying. Hope abounds. Hope cannot be stilled. That is part of what a lighthouse does. It just gives hope. It says there's land over there. There may be rocks between where you are, ship at sea, and here. Watch out. There's hope. There is shore. There is home. There is harbor. We don't see it yet. We have to believe it. We have to believe it. It's foolish, as Paul tells the Corinthians. It's dumb. It seems like the stupidest thing ever. It's not. There is a God, and God is love, and God is at work. And we may not see how God is at work, and we believe that God is gone. We're wrong if we think there is no God and God is gone. And Jesus was willing to teach his people to live according to that, even when it's illogical. And Jesus was willing to live for it himself, and he was willing to die for it, and we are his people. Hope. There's another Emily Dickinson poem we're going to end with in a little bit called This World Is Not Conclusion. And wisdom, sagacity, doesn't understand that. And we get it all figured out. Have you ever had it all figured out and then you found out you were wrong? We're not done. We're not done. People of God, we're not done. Brave people, we're not done. Scared people, we're not done. God is not done. There's more to be discovered. There's more to do. There's more love to give. There is more light to shine in the dark, in seeming disaster. Paul says, yeah, it's foolishness. But God knows a wisdom we don't know about. And as Aslan says, after his death and resurrection, there's a deeper magic that the witch doesn't know about. It's a deep magic since before the beginning of time. Can we rely on that together? I just asked that good man and his son, how's it going? He said, it's okay. I said, are y'all going to catch anything? He said, hope to.
Hope does not make sense. It's foolish. Our scripture lesson today even says this. Hope doesn't make sense. It's something that doesn't fit into this puzzle of a storm. It stands out. It shines light in the darkness. Hope is weird and ridiculous and strange and foolish, but it's the one thing that can get us through. As Rick said, we would like you to take a piece of paper and a pencil and make maybe 2 columns. And the first one, list the things that send you into your fear responses, that make you, flip your lid, like I said earlier. What are the things that make you freeze up or start faking who you are and dissociating? What are the things that make you fight, that make you angry? List those things that are causing you stress on one side of your paper. Now that you have your list of things over here that can scare you or cause you to stress out or send you into your fear mode or make you flip your lid, what we're going to do is we're going to take this other half of our paper and we're going to list the things that bring us hope. Yes, you're going to have to do some work right now, and I was surprised to see on the Journey Facebook page that someone put, oh no, there's a piece of paper and pencil in our chair, we're going to have to write about our feelings again. Yes, you're going to do that right now. You're going to write about your feelings in true Journey fashion. So go ahead and list the things that give you hope. And know that this is foolish. It doesn't make sense. Now that we have a list of the things that cause us fear and hope, I ask you to keep doing that this week. Maybe it's a physical list like you just made, or maybe it's just a mental list. List the things that can send you spiraling and make you flip your lid. And then start listing the things that bring you a radical hope. Something foolish that doesn't fit in. Journeyers, go out into the world. Be foolish. Be hopeful. Have courage. Be kind. and hold on to this hope, even in the midst of your storms.
Hello, my name is Michelle, and I'm a journeyer, and I'd like to share a poem with you by the late Emily Dickinson. This world is not conclusion. This world is not conclusion. A species stands beyond, invisible as music, but positive as sound. It beckons and it baffles. Philosophy, don't know. And through a riddle at the last, sagacity must go. To guess it puzzles scholars. To gain it, men have borne contempt of generations, and crucifixion shown. Faith slips, and laughs, and rallies, blushes if any see, plucks a twig of evidence, and asks a vain the way. Much gesture from the pulpit, strong hallelujahs roll. Narcotics cannot still the tooth that nibbles at the soul.
This world is not conclusion. A species stands beyond, invisible as music, and positive as sound. This world is not conclusion. I know something stands beyond, invisible as music, and positive as sound. It beckons and it baffles. Philosophy can't figure it out. And through a riddle at the last, sagacity must go. To guess it puzzles scholars, and to gain it men have borne contempt of generations, and even crucifixions shown. Faith slips and laughs and rallies, blushes if anybody sees, plucks at a twig of evidence and asks of aid. The way. This world is not conclusion.
This is the fancy way in which we're doing this. Let me see, wait a minute, let me see how, it's not blowing in your face. You're right, please. Oh yes, that's it.
That's it.
Good. Hey.
In the middle of a storm right now. You can tell it's a pretty tempest.
Wait.
Wondering how I got Rick to talk me into this. Thank you.